Now, Darren and I are in a mastermind together. There is a secret handshake, and we feel obligated to do it for you when he comes out. So Darren, come on stage. You ready?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Oh, wait, I got to do the turn.
Oh, you forgot the turn.
I forgot the turn.
Yeah. That was it. Take it.
ProfitCon 2018. Are you having fun? Yes. Are you learning? Yes. Are you growing? Yes. Are you designing? Yes. Well, let's continue that process right now as we get to go moving forward. Now, I want to take a moment to ask a question of all of you. How many of you wake up every day and ask yourself, or say to yourself in the morning when you roll out of bed, you know what? Today's going to be the day, world, that I'm going to be as mediocre or below average as possible. Get out of your seat and stand up with me. All right. It's always just me, every time. So let me ask this question. In your businesses, okay, in your businesses that you run, in your clients that you serve, do you want those to be mediocre or below average? Absolutely not. If we can pick, folks, between excellence and mediocrity, what are we picking? Are you guys awake? You need some more coffee? What's wrong with you? Let's try that again. If you could pick between mediocrity and excellence, what are you picking? Excellence. Excellence. One more time. Excellence. That's it. That's in your life, that's in your business, and that's in all that you do. Today, we're going to explore the pathways on how we can get there, how we can get to that level of excellence. The human development strategies that we have for ourselves as individuals, and how we combine that on teams, and why it actually matters and the impact that it's having, and how you can continue to transcend that. I want to take you back to December of 2012. In December of 2012, my wife, my 4.5-month-old daughter, and I had our first opportunity to travel together as a family. Anybody been to the big island of Hawaii? Been to the big island of Hawaii. So this is what it looked like there. It was magnificent. And every morning, my daughter Kira, she would wake up, and my wife would stay and rest a little bit longer, and I'd take my daughter down to the beach, to the ocean. We'd watch the surfers getting ready to ride the waves. We'd watch as the snorkelers got ready to go in and take a look out there. We'd watch the sunrise. For those of you that have been to the Hawaiian Islands, you know those bumblebees. They're huge. They look like birds. But my daughter was just taking it all in. And it was so amazing for me as a first-time dad, relishing this opportunity to take it all in. And one morning, we went back upstairs, just me and Kira. My wife was up. And I'm sitting out on the lanai on the balcony. And I'm having a papaya, and Kira's just laying in my lap. How many parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles do I have in the audience right now? Can any of you recall the first time that your child, your grandchild, your niece or nephew, or friend's kid laughed out loud for the first time? Yeah? See? Yeah, it's amazing, right? So that's the second time that she laughed out loud for the first time. I didn't capture the first. I didn't have the camera like waiting. Like, it's going to happen now. She totally surprised me. And it happened. Folks, that was one of the most amazing and terrifying experiences of my life. Okay? And it was amazing because this beautiful little girl that I had the privilege of calling my daughter was doing something new. She had tapped into her potential. She made me realize that we are pure potential. Then I had to look into her eyes, which were a mirror back at me. And I asked myself, hey, dude, what happened to your potential? You see, at the time, I live in California. I live in Sacramento, California. And at the time, I was commuting down to San Francisco, which is almost 100 miles away, 3 to 4 days a week. I'd leave in the mornings. She was sleeping. I'd come back in the evening. She was getting ready to go to bed. And here I was living this lie of telling myself that my wife and my daughter were two of the most important people in my life, but I wasn't living that. I wasn't living into my potential. I know I saw the hands during Adrian's talk that many of you had come from different corporate work environments and different things like that. And I was in a space where I wasn't truly engaged in my work. I wasn't truly engaged in my work. And I felt like I had more to offer. At the time, I was also teaching courses at a college, and I was helping my students tap into their potential. Other friends of mine that I'd worked with that were entrepreneurs, I was helping them. But something was missing in me. And I realized in that moment, again, that we are pure potential. And as we go through this process, I thought of all the things that Kira would become. So she reminded me of the rebirth of human potential. I thought of, wow, she's going to speak. She's going to play music. She can talk. I don't know what else she will do. But these are just some of the things that she's grown into. So her and I are able to train in martial arts together. And we're able to do that together. She's playing soccer. And when we think of our talent and the pure potential that we are, our potential is incredible, but we also have to think about how it comes out. Is it hitting the impact that we want it to have? We are pure potential, but when that's raw and that's not refined, sometimes you get outcomes like this. That's her brother. He had just gotten a haircut about 2 days before, and Kira decided that she wanted to tap into her potential. And she's like, now keep in mind, okay? Now keep in mind, 2 days before December 25th last year, we were over at some friends' houses. Kira decided to go into the bathroom at the friend's house, and she cut her own hair. Just in time for Christmas pictures. We've all got potential, folks, but we have to think of how it needs to be aimed. And as we're going through today, we're going to have a chance to really dig into that and what that means and a strengths-based approach to human development as we're going along. So I want to share this tale of two fishermen. So imagine as a leader, how many of you have at least one employee? Right? Okay? So imagine this as a leader, because this is the traditional approach to human development. As a leader, we've got these two fishermen. So fishermen, number one, is I've got an eagle. Folks, how do eagles hunt? Do they get together in giant groups of like eagle crews and go hunting? They're going eagling? Does that happen? No. How does it work? Lone eagle, right? They're solo, right? So they're solo. They spread their wings, they fly, and then they strike. Now, also on my team, I've got a dolphin. Now the dolphin, how do they hunt? Teams. They kind of work in a pod, right? They work in the groups. They swim, they drive that school of fish up to the surface, and then they're snapping at it. So me and my infinite wisdom as their leader, I say, you know what? Eagle, you're amazing at spreading your wings and flying. Dolphin, you're amazing at swimming. Here's what we're going to do. Eagle, you're going to teach the dolphin how to hunt like you. You're going to teach the dolphin how to fly, how to look from above, how to work on your own, and to strike. And dolphin, you're going to teach the eagle on how to hunt like you. You're going to teach that eagle how to swim and to get in and to be able to hunt. Where do our results end up, folks? We just became murderers, right? We just killed an eagle. We just killed a dolphin. For what? See, the problem is, folks, sometimes we get so hung up on the task at hand, we miss getting to the bigger picture of how different talents can get us there. The conventional approach to human development is what? Let's find our area of weakness. Where are we the absolute weakest? And let's spend our time developing around that. And you know what that leads to, folks? Mediocrity. Mediocrity, absolutely. We've got to debunk that myth of well-roundedness. We've got to debunk that myth of well-roundedness. Many of us as entrepreneurs, we wear that badge of I'm the CEO, I'm the chief bottle washer, I'm the janitor, I'm the scheduler. And look, I've worn all those hats too. I'm no different. But over time, we want to start thinking through the lens of not where our weaknesses, but how do we manage around our weaknesses? And that comes in aligning our talent. Our truest capacity for complete excellence resides in our areas of talent. It resides in our areas of talent. Now, when we take a strengths-based approach to human development, this is at the core of what it's all about. If you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go with others. If you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go with others. Now, let me ask this question. How many of you have ever heard of or taken the StrengthsFinder 2.0 assessment? It's a great tool for identifying our talents. It's a great tool for identifying our talents. How many of you have taken Myers-Briggs or DISC or any of those? Those are outstanding personality profile tools. The fundamental difference between the StrengthsFinder and DISC and Myers-Briggs is that the StrengthsFinder is not a personality profile tool. It gets lumped into there. But the work that we do at 34 Strong, it starts with using the StrengthsFinder tool. We use many tools within the Gallup suite. But I wanted to give you just a little overview of how this came into being and how you can think about this. And if you haven't taken it, different things that you can do to really grow on your own. You'll see there's some handouts on your chairs. We'll get into some of those later. Those are going to be some go-aways for things for you to be able to utilize and think about how you're utilizing these to grow. But I want to come back to Dr. Donald Clifton. So just over 60 years ago, he asked a question that would shape his life work. And that question was, what will happen when we focus on what's right with people instead of fixating on what's wrong with them? You think about that for a moment. In our businesses, how many of you have had pain in your businesses? And if you're not, don't have your hands up, you are lying. Right? We've all had pain in it. We envision this is what it's going to sound like. It's going to sound like a symphony, and it sounds like chaos sometimes, and it feels that way. But a lot of times, it's because we're not asking this question. So when Clifton asked this question, he realized there was no way to truly measure talent. And talents are natural patterns for thought, feeling, and behavior. I'm not talking about, hey, you got basketball chops, you can shoot, you're an amazing painter. Those are amazing talents. Maybe you're really good at watching paint dry. You know, maybe that's your thing. That's cool. But whatever it is, we've got to think about this through the lens of our patterns of our patterns for thought, feeling, and behavior that can be productively applied. So Clifton did work, and he ended up studying for the next 10 years just people to try and identify what these patterns were in human thoughts. And what emerged over the course of 10 years and nearly 2 million people studied was there's these themes that existed in a ranked order from 1 through 34 in all of us. And the likelihood of somebody having just their top 5 of those 34 in the same order as another person is 1 in 33.5 million. So your results are almost as unique to you as a fingerprint. It's pretty powerful. And what's really, really unique is even though you might share the same talent, there's a theme called the achiever theme. We'll have some fun with this as we're going through. But there's a theme called the achiever theme. It's one of the most frequently recurring themes that takes place in your dominant talents. And what ends up happening with this achiever theme is people tend to want to be doers. But if you share the achiever theme with somebody else, your descriptions, the way in which it comes out of you, would be completely different. Like Mike does have achiever in his top 5, but his description is very different than mine because our other talents, so our nature and nurture, has been very, very different in coming through it. So let's keep moving here. So when we think of talent and strength, they're two different things. The StrengthsFinder measures your talent, so it gives you the context of where your talents are. And what are talents, folks? There are natural patterns for thought, feeling, and behavior that can be productively applied. Now, strengths, when you're in a place of strength, okay, this is the ability to consistently provide near-perfect performance in a specific activity. How many of you have something that you do in your business that you feel totally energized and totally engaged in? Like you love it. If you could spend the bulk of your time doing that, that's what it would be. Anybody? Boy, I hope so. Right? Now, how about the opposite of that question? How many of you have things where you're just like, oh my gosh, I've got to do that again. That's going to just get moved down the line. And that's exactly what happens. So again, remember, it's the productive application of it where we can get that consistent, near perfect level of performance as we're going through. Now, what I want us to do, folks, you'll see there's some sheets of paper that were hung right around you on your chairs. I'd like for everybody to grab one of those sheets of paper. There's 3 handouts that are in there. And I want to actually give you a chance. We're going to do a little handwriting exercise here. Okay? What I want you to do is just turn it to the back of one of those sheets. Turn it to the back of one of those sheets. If you don't have one, there might be some in the middle. Maybe we're all friends here, so if you can pass one to your neighbor if they don't have one, that would be great. And what I want us to do is I want you to go ahead and draw a line right down the center of that paper. Okay? Just draw a line down the center of the paper. This is on just the back. Okay? All right, folks. So we're going to do a little handwriting exercise, all right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 30 seconds to print the word strength. Hey, and for those of you that are getting going, wait till I say go. I know some of you are like, I'm going to win. I'm going to beat everybody. Competition is a talent. It is a talent, believe it or not. It's one of the results there that we can have. But for those of you that are thinking that, just wait a moment. So I want all of you to print the word strengths as many times as you possibly can in 30 seconds. But before we go, I want to just make sure everybody is ready. Put your pens in the air for me to see. Okay? So I got everybody's ready. We got a couple going. Okay, now what I want you to do, switch hands. Okay? Your pen should now be in your non-dominant hand. You see where this is going, right? Yeah. So you're going to print the word strengths as many times as you can in 30 seconds. So we're going to do that on the left-hand side of the page. If you cannot remember how to make the letter S or spell the word strength, I've conveniently placed it up on the board there. Okay? So on your mark, folks, get set, go. Pens down, folks. Pens down. Give it a count. Count it up. Count it up. All right. Count it up. Hold on. For those of you that had 5 or more, stand up. 5 or more. Look around the room. Just stay standing, look around the room. So 30 seconds. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that were. What's that? I didn't say right or left hand. I just said dominant or non-dominant hand. So we had 8 that are standing right now out of this group who had 30 seconds to complete this. Thank you. Did any of you 8? Did any of you have 6? You had 6. Awesome. Excellent. Go ahead. Well, No. It has nothing to do with left-handed or right-handed. It has to do, you started with your dominant hand, that's what it was, and then you switched hands, the hand that you'd naturally write with. So the whole point here is I wanted us to experience what this is like. How did that feel? Give me some words that describe that. Awkward. Frustrating. Awkward, right? Frustrating, awkward, fun. I heard fun. It was kind of fun, right? And what's that? Unfamiliar. Now, if we focused, right? You were like, this is the longest S I've ever written in my life, right? So truth be told, folks, we've done this with people's names. We say, write your name as many times. Wait, how do you spell the name Pat? Again, it gets to be very, very thinky in it. Now, let's do this. On the other column, what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same exercise. But this time you will have the ability to write with your dominant hand. Okay? And I did, but you're going to wait on me so I can tell you when to go. Think of that. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable. It was frustrating. Okay? Let's see how the results end up this time. So we had 8 standing this last round. Let's see how many are standing this time. Okay? So on your mark, get set, go. And you should be with your dominant hand as many times as you can. Pens down, folks. Give it a count. 5 or more. Stand up. 5 or more. Stay standing and look around. How did that feel, folks? Way better? Easy? You were stressed because it's timer? We're going to get you some wine, Amber. That's what we're going to do. Somebody get her some wine. We don't need you to be stressing. Folks, let me ask you a really important question. How much time did you have? How much time did you have? You had 15 seconds. 15 seconds, look at the results. Go ahead and have a seat, folks. The whole point here, that is your visceral experience of actually feeling the difference between a deficit-based approach to human development and a strengths-based approach to human development. If your business depended on your ability in which you could write, with whichever hand that is, your dominant hand, right or left, whatever that is for you, and you were forced for the next year to write with your non-dominant hand, would you get better? Absolutely. I'll be the first person to tell you, you will improve. You might become excellently mediocre. Aim high, right? I think Michelangelo has a quote that he says, the problem in life is not that we aim too high and don't get there, it's that we aim too low and we reach it. So as we're thinking through this process, folks, this is the difference between a strengths-based approach and a deficit-based approach to human development. If your productivity depended on it, and your life depended on it, would you pick to write with your non-dominant hand or your dominant hand? Which one would you pick? Dominant hand. It's a no-brainer. And we know that and we understand that. But yet in our business, we're like, I'll do everything. And that will take us away from clockwork. That will take us away from the design elements that can truly grow us and getting that talent aligned. So, what are some of the traits, words, when you think of great leaders that you've experienced? What are some of the words that come to mind that describe their qualities? Anything. Visionary. Empowering. Confident. Inspiring. Charismatic. Now here's another question. When you think of those great leaders, do they tend to all have all of that, or are some more charismatic, some more visionary? Do they all come together? Do they all have this full package of tools? No. You're absolutely right. There's one thing that Gallup has found that all great leaders share in common. And what that is self-awareness. Self-awareness. They know who they are, and they also know who they're not. They know who they are, and they know who they're not. They're confident in where they shine and where they're blind. Any of you familiar with Brené Brown's work? Yeah. Brené Brown is incredible. Her work on vulnerability. And her hand, what she's got written there on her hand, I'm imperfect and I'm enough. When we can empower ourselves as leaders, as owners, as managers, to realize we don't have to be all things to all people. But rather, we can empower ourselves to be a heck of a lot more of who we are. And a whole lot more, and empower our teams to be a whole lot more of who they are. Any of you heard of Roy Spence? Gentleman above my shoulder here. So Roy Spence is the founder of the Purpose Institute, and his mom gave him an incredible gift as a little boy growing up in Texas. When Roy was a young boy, I think he was in about the 5th grade, he was given an assignment to go home and go through a creative writing process and write a story. Some of you might remember this. He had to actually go and write, with pen and paper, like you're doing right now. Not submit his homework on a tablet or whatever it is that we're getting into. So he goes, he does this, and Roy is fired up when he gets this assignment. He loves telling stories. Loves it. He's pumped. So he goes and he writes this story, he turns it in, he gets it back a week later, and it looks like his teacher might have spilled her glass of red wine all over the page because it's just covered in red marks. And Roy's feeling deflated. And he turns and turns and turns to the last page, and sure enough, he has a big F. And those Fs did not go over well in the Spence household. But eerily, Mom and Dad were quiet. They didn't have a lot to say. They didn't have a lot to say. And as a young boy, he's thinking like, I dodged one. But he didn't feel great. He felt like I'm not enough. A week passed, a month passed, and then a year passed. And he was in a new class, new teacher, was given a very similar assignment. He feels that same energy, and he goes and he pours his heart and soul into that assignment, writes this incredible story of what he thought to be incredible, turns it in, and a week later, he gets his paper back. On first pass, it looks identical, and Roy is feeling deflated. Roy is feeling those same sentiments of, I'm not enough. But he turns to the last page, and the difference this time is he has an A. So Roy runs to his mom and goes, Mama, Mama, that's my best Texas accent, sorry. That's all I got. I'll work on that for next time. I have to work on that and Ron's accent, apparently, because that's how you get invited back to the conference. So Roy goes and he says, Mama, I don't understand. Last year I got an F, and I did this creative writing story, and this year I did another story, and I was all energized, and I got an A. I don't get it, but the papers look the same. And she says, son, she says, let me tell you something. She goes, you are a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal storyteller, but you can't spell. You struggle with grammar. He was dyslexic, that's what it was, and they didn't have it diagnosed at the time. And she told him this, and it stuck with him at a young age, and it's transformed him into who he is today. She told him, don't spend your life trying to become average at what you are bad at, when you can spend your time becoming excellent at something that you are great at. Each of you has your own potential within you. Each of you has your own capacity for excellence. But we've got to aim that in the way that's going to create the best outcomes. Second piece here, folks, I want you to really think about this. How can you aim high? How can you eradicate entrepreneurial poverty and play big in the way that you were meant to do if you're focusing on weakness? I want to be very clear. I am not saying ignore your weakness. I'm saying own your strengths and own your weaknesses. We can manage around that. That's what it's all about. And that's where we come to, we've got to be confidently vulnerable. Confident in where we shine and confident in the areas that we don't show up as well. So we can manage around those weaknesses, not invest our time becoming them. Because you become what you focus on. And that doesn't mean that you're destined for greatness, because what starts to happen is your strengths, your areas of talent, start to atrophy. Your areas of weakness might get up to, again, excellent mediocrity or excellent below average. I don't think any of you want that. That's not what we're aiming for. The strengths equation, folks, is talent times investment equals strength. We start with talent, we multiply it by investment, and that's how we go from talent to strength. And the investment is the time that you spend reading about it, learning about it, practicing it, dialoguing about it, working within those spaces within your teams. Okay? So I want to just take a moment. We're going to have more opportunities to stand up. You guys, I know you're getting a CrossFit exercise in here. I'm just kidding. No, we won't be doing any of that. No cables or any of that stuff, right? None of that. But I just want to have some fun. I'm going to show you some areas of talent, areas that talent actually manifests for us. And these are going to be things you're going to look at and be like, I don't think those are talent. I never thought of that as a talent. Or you might look at some of them and say, I think that's bloody annoying. And that's okay. But when you actually think about it and you connect the dots, you'll start seeing how even those things that maybe you see as, they actually create value for you and have created value for you, maybe in your businesses. So I want you to stand up if you talk to people everywhere you go. Airplanes, elevators, right? Grocery stores, anywhere you go, you're talking to them. You're breaking the ice, you're making the connections, right? You are winning these people over. Okay? This is just what you do. You're very comfortable. Okay? Don't worry for those of you that are seated. We have an opportunity for you too. Go ahead and have a seat, folks. Go ahead and have a seat. How many of you think no one should talk to anyone in an elevator? That's okay, right? Because we need to look at the elevator button panel. That's the most amazing button. Oh my, did you see those panels, the buttons in the panel on the elevator? Sometimes, folks, these are different areas of talent that we have. It's okay. Elevators are different from grocery stores. Very true. Absolutely. True story. What's that? Yeah, that's it. Captive audience, right? You're going to listen. Yeah. It's like riding on the subway when the musicians come in. You're just, okay, I've got a concert, right? Okay, now let me ask you this. How many of you write down the list of things to do and you stick with it? And by that I mean, maybe you don't get it done today, maybe it's for the week, you're going to get it done. But you really do your best to make that list and stick with it, right? So we've got our list makers, okay? Now I want you to look around for a moment. As best as you can. Like I said, mostly. Either always or mostly. So even if you don't get it done today, maybe it's getting done over the course of the week. The achiever theme is a proverbial list-making talent. That's one of the talents that comes up. There's certain talents that are just more doing-based. Now, for those of you that are standing, all right, how many of you make a list of things to do on the weekends as well? And I don't mean stay standing if that's you. And I don't mean that your spouse handed you a list of things to do. And you're like, oh, I got to do this, right? Okay, now the ultimate test. I told you about vulnerability. Now is your chance to play all out and practice some confident vulnerability. We're going deep here today. Okay? Everybody's scared. Like, oh my, what's he going to do? Don't worry, it's nothing crazy. How many of you that are standing, when you do something that wasn't on your list, you write it down on your list and you cross it off. Put your hands up. Now, for those of you that are seated and don't understand us crazy, insane people, myself included, okay? I want to open it back up to the audience. For those of you, all seriousness now, for those of you that put your hand up, why do we do that? Accomplishment. Check. It's a feeling of accomplishment. I heard it feels good. So when we think of this whole process, okay, when we think of this, the reason we go through, go ahead and have a seat. Thank you. I won't make you get any more vulnerable than that today. When we cross these things off our list, folks, for some people, that creates a surge of energy. For those of you that were seated, there's nothing wrong. I want to be very clear with the fact that if you're not a list maker, that's okay. And that's what I want you all to take in. Some of you are very list-driven. And you might go to one of your employees and you might hand them a list. And you might say, this is what I need you to do. But they're really, really good at going out and being the connector with clients and with people. And you're missing an opportunity. Because we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And when we can understand that through the filter of our own talents, we can have a much better impact on aligning those talents to create that space. Now, I will say, sometimes us list makers, yes, you're looking at one of them. I'm a #1 achiever. I love my list. My handwriting is not my talent. I still write everything on paper, even though About 70% of the time, I can't read half of what I've written down. Still feels good, writing it down. I see a few hands, thank you. I'm glad that resonates with some of you. But this whole process of doing, we can be exhausting to go on vacation with as well sometimes, right? Because on Monday, we're going on a big hike. We got to do this, right? On Tuesday, we went into the city. On Wednesday, you want to sit by the pool and drink a margarita. That's what you want to. You want to spend the whole vacation drinking margaritas by the pool. Okay, we can do that on Wednesday, and I'll cross that off my list. But on Thursday, we're climbing a volcano, okay? That's how it works. So as we think through this process, folks, I want to transition us when we're thinking of these different areas of talent, having some fun with this and how we're thinking about ourselves. We often come to a place where we're challenged with breaking out the differences between tasks and outcomes. And I was given a gift last summer, in the July of 2017, when I was on vacation with my whole family. I was with my wife and my 2 children, and I was also, my parents were there and my siblings were there. So what you'll see here is, this was the view. We were in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Who's ever been there? Absolutely beautiful place, right? So this was the view from, my wife took this picture. This was in the morning. How can you tell? Because she's holding a cup of coffee. A little later in the day, she wasn't holding a cup of coffee, it was something else, right? You walk through the little pathway there, past the palm trees, and that was a view that my son had. He was contemplating getting in the ocean. How many of you have been on those vacations where you're fully present, you're fully immersed, and maybe that hasn't been you for the past several years, but even if you have to dip back into childhood, how many of you have had one of those experiences? Just fully immersed, and you were totally present, you're taking it all in. You were soaking it all in. It's completely amazing. We were on one of those. All of us were in that space, and we were all remarking about it. And we would remark about this oftentimes in the afternoons, in the tropics, late morning afternoons. These incredible storms would blow through. The skies would gray, and we'd be treated to one of the most beautiful concerts that nature had to offer. An afternoon thunderstorm. And we would sit under that overhang. My wife had transitioned from coffee to something else, I don't know what. But we'd sit under there, and we'd talk, and we'd reflect, and we enjoyed it. And listen to the sounds of the rain pounding away. We'd listen to the thunder off in the distance, and the lightning show that would be put on. And it was really, really a powerful experience for us all. And we enjoyed it. And we would take in that crisp, clean air that comes after a rainfall, especially in the tropics. Wow, how refreshing that was. How invigorating it was. And on one of the days, my younger brother and I, Devin, we went scuba diving. So this was us in the ocean on that day. Now, I should give you an aside. He's my youngest brother by 16 years. And my middle brother is 12 years younger than me. I like to say that my parents just thought I was just that great. I think if you talk to them, I think they'd have a little bit different story, but well, that's for another talk, right? So Devin and I were diving. How many snorkelers or scuba divers do I have in the house tonight? Or today? It's not night yet, right? We went diving. We dove on the submarine. We didn't go inside of the wreck, but we went around it. And everybody was excited to share, to hear what the experience was like. And I've been diving for many, many years now. And I wanted to give Devin the opportunity to kind of tell his story. So we get back to the condo, and we're there, and they're asking him all these questions. And he looks outside. He looks outside, and what does he see? He sees the skies are graying. So he says, guys, I'm going to grab a glass of water, and then why don't you come on outside, follow me, and we can go outside and talk and enjoy our nature concert, as we had come to call it. So Devin goes, and he opens the door. And he takes his first breath, expecting that clean, crisp air. Instead, folks, his lungs are filled with smoke. Devin takes a step off of the patio, and he looks out to his right, and about 50 yards away, the restaurant, a vinyl tented area of the restaurant, is completely engulfed in flame. Like that, our vacation went from completely exciting to one of a bit of panic because the smoke was blowing right at us. Embers, ashes, sparks were coming right to our patio, which was covered with wooden furniture. We grabbed my son, whose diaper we had just happened to change. We got to safe ground with our passports and found many other families there as well. I watched from afar, and what I saw was one of the most incredible displays of teamwork that I've ever seen in my life. And truth be told, it did not look like they were going to get the upper hand on this fire. It looked like the winds were picking up, and it wasn't going to happen. But truth be told, they were able to successfully get this fire out. And that wasn't the most amazing part of the experience. The amazing part was what happened in the hours after, in the days after, in the week after, because this happened pretty early on our trip. 2 hours after the fire was extinguished and they had safed off the whole area and the different sections of where it was, the resort didn't miss a beat. That was their one restaurant. They were building another one on site. They didn't miss a beat. They had dinner service ready, and they'd reconfigured an area. They had a band that was scheduled to play that night in the tent. They'd reconfigured another area. And that was powerful. And we've all had to do that in our business. We've all had our own fire drills that we've had. But that wasn't the amazing part. They took care of those tasks. The days ahead, every single person of that organization, whether it was a senior leader, whether it was a janitorial staff, whether it was the pool team or bartender, they never missed a beat on making sure that every touch they had with each of us as resort guests was absolutely incredible. They never lost sight of the single most important outcome that they provided across the board was an excellent experience for their guests. How many of you get stuck in task land? I know I do. How many of you sometimes does it get difficult to distinguish between what are the tasks that I have to do and what are the outcomes, the sustainable things that rinse and repeat themselves over time? It gets blurry. These are tasks, folks. These are outcomes. These are outcomes. Preston's a little too small to remember this trip, but Kira still talks about it. She has no recollection of the fire or running away, and everything worked out, obviously, quite well. But I want us to remember the importance of that and thinking through the outcome process as opposed to just the tasks. So again, I bring you back to mediocrity versus excellence. What are you aiming for, folks? Excellence. One more time, a little bit more excellence in that. That's it. That's what you're aiming for. We're not going to get there by focusing on our weaknesses. Okay? We're not going to get there by focusing on our weaknesses. Now, just keep this in mind. In the United States and across the world, we have an issue with disengagement. Employees are disengaged. Let that sink in. Maybe you haven't even thought about that, right? I should be doing something else. How many of you in your careers have quit a bad manager? Look around, folks. Maybe you even like the company. Maybe you like the organization you were working for. But that manager, that leader, you had to quit, right? Keep this in mind. In your businesses, as you're growing, as you're expanding, money and people combine to make the lifeblood of your business. We've got to keep them healthy collectively. On the people side, just keep this in mind. People don't quit bad organizations. They quit bad managers. They disengage if they're not feeling connected. If they're not feeling connected to the purpose. And today, more than ever, people are more focused on being connected to the purpose. Having a culture of purpose rather than a culture of paycheck. Having a culture where I can be valued for being valuable. That's what they want. If not, these are the thoughts that are wandering through their head. And disengagement comes in two tiers. There's two different shelves to it. There's disengagement, which means, yeah, I'm collecting a paycheck. I'm showing up to work. I'm working 8 hours. I'm getting paid for 8 hours, but maybe I'm working about 5-ish and kind of not really checked in. You're never going to catch the disengaged on the extra mile. Then there's actively disengaged. The actively disengaged employees, they are actively checked out. Like they are actively working against you. We have a term for them. They're called cave dwellers. Maybe you've seen these folks. Cave dwellers are consistently against virtually everything. When they're not there, your organization runs better. Things go much, much smoother in the process. Anybody ever seen those? Yep, right? It's crazy, right? So I just want to give you a picture of what disengagement has looked like in the United States and does look like now. And when you see the first component, it's not going to look hopeful, but I want to show it to you in context of the change that has happened over the past 5 years as more and more organizations have adapted a strengths-based approach. The statistics on the US elements are much, much more studied than the overall global elements, and that's why I focused on this. I know there's many of us in here from other countries as well, but change is happening. This is why Gandhi is here, because you, as business owners, have the capacity to be the new workplaces. 34 Strong, my company that I founded, we architect destination workplaces. That's places, we architect the best places to work. That's what we do. And it doesn't happen in one workshop or a single-hour talk. It's rolling up your sleeves, getting pretty deep. And this is why. This is what we're combating. And I've lived through being a disengaged employee, like I can tell many of you have. And I know there's a different way. Today, the current statistics in the United States, 50% of workers in the US are disengaged, and 15% are actively disengaged. And keep in mind, these actively disengaged folks, these are the folks that are walking down the hall. I got to be out for a week. I just bumped my finger on an air molecule. I'm going to need to take the next 2 weeks off. I got an injury. Yeah, that's where it is. These are the areas that we are dealing with in the disengaged and actively disengaged place. So what does that mean? That means that only 35% of our workforce is actually engaged. And this is based on Gallup's studies that they've done. This is the most current data here from 2018. And this is, again, based on Gallup statistics. But here's the thing. In 2013, 30% of the United States workforce was engaged. It's traveled significantly. And for you that are far better at numbers than I, that's better than the 15% increase with the 5% shift that we've had here. Because 30 to 33% is a 10% increase. We're moving in the right direction, and more organizations are actually taking on a strengths-based approach to human development. They understand something, folks. We get so caught up on what our external brand is, right? Our external brand. What does my brand look like to my clients? How do I get engaged clients? How in the heck are you going to get engaged clients if you have disengaged employees? If you squeezed a tomato and it didn't give you orange juice, you wouldn't get pissed off at the tomato. Would you? Would you say, it didn't give me orange juice. What happened? You wouldn't do that. But yet, this happens in our workplaces time and time again. With many large organizations that we work with, we watch that same show play itself out. You have the power to change that as you're going through and as you're focusing on the development of the culture that you want. Because your employee-facing brand becomes your external-facing brand as well. And that's why the strengths-based approach matters. Now, you've heard me talk about engagement. I want to give you some context on what this is. Okay? We're not going to get way into this. There's a tool that Gallup has called Q12. And as I mentioned, 34 Strong, what we actually do is focus on creating cultures of employee engagement, where people are engaged. There's a book called Strengths-Based Leadership, and there's the 4 needs of followers, similar to Maslow's hierarchy that Adrian had talked about earlier. But these are the 4 needs that followers have: trust, compassion, stability, and hope. Gallup, for 25 years, studied not why are employees leaving organizations. What happens? Somebody leaves a company. Let's study why they're leaving. Gallup decided to completely flip the script on that. They studied why do the best employees choose to stay. They asked thousands of different questions and statements, And what it all boiled down to was these 12, and they correlate to these different areas. You can geek out on data. What we've done, and I've included this in this packet for you, okay? And this is one of the takeaways that I want you to have. For Q1, I know what's expected of me at work. We have actually converted that into a conversation guide for you. This comes straight out of a program, one thing that we do in our long-term contracts called the Best Manager Academy. This is a great exercise that gives you the coaching guide for how you can actually go through having these conversations. Because sometimes we could say, well, what do you mean I don't know what's expected of me? I told my employee what I expect of him. I wrote it. I put an email together. How many of you played telephone as a kid? You whisper Dunkin' Donuts coffee into somebody's ear, and then three people down, what comes out? Let's climb Mount Everest, right? How did we get from Dunkin' Donuts coffee to let's climb Mount Everest? Those things all happen. So this gives you a guide for onboarding. And we've seen it work time and time again for getting clarity. And when you're asking these questions, ask the questions, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Sit back and take it in. Let him know it's an opportunity to do that. It's great for onboarding. You might even have some nuggets in there for how you're onboarding new clients. You can adapt some of those questions. And I thought that was going to be one of the most useful tools for you in going through. And even with the existing staff, you might find the way that you set expectations is different. Does not have to be a full hour-long conversation. Have that. If there's questions that stand out to you, ask one question. Make it a 6-minute conversation over a cup of coffee. That's it. Take it in and just listen. See what comes away. This is how Gallup measures engagement, though. That's what it gets into. We don't have enough time today to really dig much, much deeper into it. So the impact that this has on business. Well, we are here at ProfitCon. Okay? So when people are more engaged in their work, guess what goes down? Turnover goes down. People are more productive. Profitability increases. Profitability improves. I don't have time to get into all of Gallup's meta-analysis, but I do have a case that I'll be sharing with you in a moment and showing you how a company actually turned it around. But these are all the shifts that take place we're going through. So I want to transition here and give you the case study of how this has actually worked in a company. There's a triad group of companies. The triad companies were an injection molding company. So they were a manufacturing company. They were a manufacturing company. And Nancy and Russell Merrick, the two owners, were facing an impossible problem. It was as if they had had a torpedo in the side of their boat. They were just bleeding money. And the company was basically on the brink of death. This is what it looked like. Okay? They had an 85% turnover rate, meaning they were what, folks? A revolving door. Is that costly? Yeah. Is that costly? Absolutely. It's incredibly costly, right? 35% scrap rate. What does that mean? Waste. Complete waste. So 35% of their materials were going right to waste. Productivity, as you can imagine, was egregious, and profitability was non-existent. It was negative. They were dying on the vine. And they knew if they didn't do something quick, they weren't going to be in business in a year. They had no idea what to do. They really had no idea what to do. But one holiday season, over one of the holidays, their 2 daughters came back home from college. And the 2 daughters had been exposed to the StrengthsFinder. They took the StrengthsFinder assessment. And they started dialoguing about it. Mom and Dad ended up taking it. And it completely started to shift their family dynamics on how they understood and interacted with each other. And what happened at that same time is Nancy had the privilege of being part of Gallup's inaugural class, becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach. And she went through and she became a Gallup certified strengths coach, and she said, well, this is it. I'm going to take this because our culture, our people piece is completely broken. And that's part of our problem. So she really dug into this whole process as they had to go through getting the right manager in place. And guess where it started? It started in the leadership. The leadership had to connect, understand each other through the filter of their respective talents. And as that happened, and staff started taking the assessment, Nancy started talking to the staff about their strengths, and they started seeing each other not just strictly as a task, but as the overall outcome that the company wanted to have. And through the filter of talents, how do those talents align that are totally different? They're on complete opposite ends of the spectrum for ways that we can connect and make an impact. My business partner, Brandon Miller, he's a verbal processor. He thinks out loud. Anybody know anybody that their talking process? That's how they think it out. Brandon is a verbal processor, okay? Me, I'm a doer on our team. I'm an executor. And when I hear things, when we first started the company, when I would hear things, my whole thought process was, if you're going to talk about doing something, that means we're doing it. Yeah, you see where this is going, right? So Brandon and I would have these epic meetings. He'd be verbally processing, talking about different ideas, different things like that. And what would end up happening is I would go, that's a great idea, that's a great idea. I could take the idea, move it to action. So what do? I move the idea to action. 2 days later, we get on a phone call, we meet, and I say, hey, Brandon, guess what, bud? I got this done, this done, this done, this done, this done. And he'd say, yeah, I don't think we should do any of that. I'm like, you kidding? Right? I'm ready to do this. And that's unproductive. And the whole point is, folks, we were missing each other on a strengths basis. Now, we easily could have been a partnership that crashed and burned and flamed out. I couldn't ask for a better business partner. Could not ask for a better person to be partnered up along with and building our vision together. I understand that he needs to verbally process, and he'll prime and he'll say, hey, I'm calling you. He needs to talk a lot, right? But he'll call and say, I need to verbally process it. I just need to talk it out. And I know if I send him an email, his response is not going to come via an email. It's going to be, I need to talk it out. And he knows that I'm a doer. And I might have to tell him, hey, I'm in the zone right now. I can't take that call. We've actually gotten so good as a partnership, he'll call me, know that I'm in the middle of a training or I'm in the middle of a conference like this, and he'll leave me a 2.5-minute voicemail, and then he'll say, hey, no need to call me back, Darren. I got my verbal processing out. We've automated that part, right? So it's become like clockwork. We've designed that into our process, and there's nothing but love there. So it's worked out there. So when we think of that whole process of what these guys went through, and in starting to understand that, on how we interact through a filter of talents, and the brilliance that actually comes from that, this is what ended up happening 18 months later. Okay? They had a 180-degree turnaround. They fell to an 8% turnover rate. Scrap rate went down to 1%. Productivity went up by 200%. Profitability went up significantly by 233%. But the point here is that they were actually profitable. Because remember, they were dying on a vine. One other really important fact, the size of the company, the amount of employees, didn't really change. It was about the same amount of employees that they were able to get to these results with. They aligned their talent, brought it together, and focused on creating a culture of engagement. That's the power of a strengths-based approach. And the power of it for you, as you're thinking through this, is not simply just doing it one time. It's not getting to the place where you need to turn it around. It's the fact that in your growth phases, you can build it right into the culture as you're going through the process. Now, you might have heard of this guy, Mike Michalowicz or Michalowicz or something like that. I don't know, right? But he wrote this book called Clockwork. You should really check it out. I hear he's a pretty dynamic guy, right? Now, Mike and I, as you mentioned, we've been in a mastermind group together. And one of the things that he talks about in here is balancing the team. And what I want you to realize is as you get into the design phases, if you choose to work with Adrian and going through basically running like clockwork, getting your businesses to go to that place, one of the key things that is talked about here is we've got to get the team balanced around talents. But your role then becomes to also make sure that the calibrations are taking place. What do I mean by that? How many of you have ever driven a car that's been out of alignment, right? So your wheels turned like this. This is how you're going straight, right? Are you doing good to your vehicle in that process? No, you're doing damage, but the vehicle will still run. The vehicle will still run. What got you to 100,000 or what got you to 200,000 is not going to be what gets you to 1 million. 34 Strong's been going through this pocket of growth over the past several years, and we are constantly looking at re-upping that. That also doesn't only take place in the systems that you use, it takes place in the way that you're aligning talent. And you might have to reshuffle the deck. That's one of the things you hear about in clockwork, but this is the area that it goes through. So I want to just come back and just share your next strong steps here as we wrap up. Now you might be asking, why do I have a picture of myself on the steps, the Spanish steps in Rome with my friend from Holland? How many of our Dutch friends are still here? Right? All right, so shout out to Holland. That's one of my best friends from Holland. He lives in the Netherlands. His name's Bart. I've never felt so short in my life, except for when I've been in Holland and standing next to him. Now the reason I say your next strong steps, because oftentimes we take many steps that are pointless. That picture is evidence of one of them. I stepped up 2 whole steps, and I'm still a dwarf next to him. I was like, I'm gonna look bigger. Didn't work. Didn't work. I'm usually about here on him. As you take these next strong steps, folks, I want to be very clear. I'm not selling from stage here. Take the Strengths Finder. I get nothing out of it. It's Gallup. Gallup has nothing to do with 34 Strong. But one of the best things you can do, take the Strengths Finder if you haven't yet. Dig a little deeper into that. Develop that self-awareness. There's an exercise that you have in your packets called The Best of Us. The Best of Us is simply 4 statements. You get the best of me when, you get the worst of me when, you can count on me too, and this is what I need from you. I want you to be really honest with yourself. Take that, fill that out with as many different statements as you can. Maybe you have a plane ride going home. Do that. Take that. And then the team awareness. I talked to you about the Q1 coaching conversation guide. That's a powerful process to go through with your employees and just ask any of those questions that stand out to you and listen. And there's a whole guide on how to do that. And even think of some of those questions that maybe you want to ask as part of your onboarding with clients. Okay? Remember this, folks. The journey is the destination. The journey is the destination. And it's up to you to design that. You can get there. But enjoy the journey along the way. As you go through growth, there's power in that journey. Okay? The final piece that I want to leave you with today is this quote from Simon Sinek. The goal is not to fix your weaknesses. The goal is to amplify your strengths and surround yourself with the people who can do what you can't do. Just remember that in your journey and going forward as you're moving along. I want to just thank you all from the bottom of my heart on your mission to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. It has been incredibly powerful for 34 Strong to fold it in to our company. We've had the privilege of working, I can't help it, Billy Ann, with Billy Ann over several years, and she has completely changed the trajectory of our business in helping us in the past. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, and I hope that you can keep this alive. It's truly an honor and a privilege to serve all of you today, and may you go forth and continue serving your mission. Thank you.